Good evening and welcome to the South County Fire Board of Commissioners regular board meeting for August 6, 2025. I'll go ahead and call us to order. Ask everybody to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Board members, you have in front of you the amended agenda, updated agenda for this evening. Is there anything else for the agenda?
No.
Anything else for the agenda? I'll move that we adopt the updated agenda as presented this evening.
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Chan. It's been moved and seconded to adopt the updated agenda. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. That moves us to item number, 4, which is the consent agenda. And that's items 4A, which is the August 5, 2025 claims vouchers totaling $1,348,294.55. And item 4B, the payroll summary authorization for July 2025. I'll move the adoption of those items in the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Teofilak. It's been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda, consent agenda items. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. That moves us forward in the agenda to item number 5, which is approval of the meeting minutes. And then this evening, we have the July 5, 2025 regular meeting minutes. I will move the adoption of those meeting minutes. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Wittitz. It's been moved and seconded to adopt those July 15, 2025 regular meeting minutes. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. That moves us forward in the agenda then to item number 6, which is the first part of the fire chief's report. This will be regarding City of Mill Creek and deployment plan update from Assistant Chief Sean Maxwell. Good evening, Chief Maxwell.
Thank you, Chair Kenny, board members, liaisons, and honored guests. Thanks for all of you being here. Thanks for the opportunity to present this. Christy, our communications director, is going to assist me with the presentation here. So let's go to the first slide, Christy. I'd like to start off. I guess I just want to say to everybody, I think with a lot of this, we could have definitely done a better job at communicating, and we've learned something from that. But to dive into another thing that I think that the fire service has really failed to communicate and educate is on how EMS response is delivered through the fire service. And I want to talk about our firefighters for a minute here. Emergency medical technicians and paramedics, every single firefighter on every apparatus is an EMT, emergency medical technician or paramedic, and they are certified by the state to deliver medical care in the field. Our firefighters are well-trained EMTs, and it's important to remember a lot of what an EMT does are what needs to be done in the first 5 minutes of any critical situation. So many systems, the engine arrives first with 3 EMTs and start to deliver that care before paramedics arrive. And a lot of that is life-saving interventions that have changed dramatically through my career. We provide now a sophisticated system of a high-performance CPR that gets started. We now EMTs defibrillate, which is a critical life-saving intervention in those first moments of our most critical calls, as well as stopping hemorrhaging. All of those things save lives in those first 5 to 10 minutes. It's evolved further where paramedics used to only do a lot of those things, defibrillation or give medications. Now, our EMTs actually deliver medications that used to only be done by paramedics. And they include Narcan for opioid overdoses, epinephrine. I know there's been concerns about anaphylaxis from allergies, nuts, bee stings. And albuterol, a nebulizer for people that are having an asthma attack or trouble breathing. And then for heart patients or cardiac patients, they can also now deliver nitroglycerin and aspirin. So, so what our EMTs on our engines, they're what we call our scope of care. What they're able to do is now expanding. So some of those things you used to wait till a paramedic was there, they're now delivered by EMTs as well. We also have an advanced airway procedures that's going to come out next month. So that's continuing to evolve. The laws are changing on that. The second thing I'd like to talk about is what happens when you call 911. I think, and I just want to say that I've listened to every message we've received, and I've read every email, and I've tried to kind of look for the patterns of concerns. And so that's part of what I'm addressing tonight. But another thing I'd like to talk about is a thing called automatic vehicle locating. I think we think of fire stations as our firefighters always responding out of the station. The fire engines and paramedic units and aid units are all mobile. We are going to calls, we're going to training, we're going to hospitals, we're coming back. And the system in this county, when you have an emergency, it picks up the closest unit and dispatches the closest unit to you. So we have to open up and just thinking that that one fire station is where they're always coming from. It's actually a more sophisticated system that's going to pull the closest unit to your emergency. And then the other thing I touched on earlier is care doesn't wait for the paramedic. There's been a lot of discussion about paramedics. Care doesn't start when paramedics arrive. Care starts when those 3 emergency medical technicians on the fire engine arrive and start care. And a lot of times that care would be the same thing that a paramedic is going to do in those first few minutes until the paramedics arrive. The other thing is there are often more than one call that we have a system, and it's not just one station, 1 or 2 units. And this is really important. And incidentally, when we were at the Mill Creek meeting last week, we didn't have 1, but 2, but 3. We had 4 concurrent calls going on in the city of Mill Creek. And so that's and I'm going to demonstrate that's about through the data a little bit more as we go. But that really illustrates how one station or 1 or 2 units, it's not enough. It requires a system. The other thing, as we get busier and turn into more of a metropolitan area, we need redundancy and reliability. And what do I mean by that? When an ambulance comes to your house, whether a paramedic or aid unit, they take you and they transport you. And they often are gone for up to an hour. Sometimes it's hours. We all know the stress on our healthcare system. And many times our ambulances can be stuck for hours at the hospital. And when we have these dedicated engines, we're keeping that asset in in that neighborhood, or what we call that their first response area. And they are a all hazards response. So not only can they do the most basic calls, they can respond to the advanced paramedic calls and start care until the paramedics arrive. And as you can see on the list, they respond to fires, as we know, car crashes, hazmat incidents, and they can even start various rescues, such as a water rescue. So when we have a dedicated engine not going away to the hospital, we're keeping a all hazards response asset there for that community. We're working to increase that reliability. This demonstrates a system of care, and we're kind of demonstrating, I'm going to call this the Mill Creek quadrant because I know that's the topic of concern tonight. And if you look there, you can see the white figures are the paramedics. And that was the old system, and you can see how they are in and surround Mill Creek. And then you'll see this next, go ahead, one more, Chris. And just in a quick summary, reading through all the messages, a lot of it centered around trying to understand EMS and paramedics. So with the old model, we had 5 paramedics in the Mill Creek quadrant, plus an MSO who's also a paramedic. We would have 3 ambulances 24 hours a day, and then 1 ambulance, or what we call an aid car, at night. In this new model, we now have the Mill Creek quadrant surrounded with 7 paramedics and 1 MSO for a total of 8 paramedics. And now we have 4 ambulances, 2 paramedic units, 2 aid units, 24 hours a day. Go the next. This slide illustrates what I've done is the other thing I heard was people are saying, well, you keep talking about the data. What about the data? I recognize we spent hundreds and hundreds of hours going through the data, and nobody's going to want to spend that much time with us going through that data or what we could cover in an evening. So what I've done is picked up some salient points of areas we've stitched together to inform our decisions. And this is one of those maps. If you look at this map, you know, I think a lot of us in our mental model is we think of medic or Station 76 right in the middle of Mill Creek. It's actually not. It's over in the far 25% of Mill Creek. And I don't have to tell the people that live in Mill Creek, it's not fast to get. You usually have to go around to get to different places in Mill Creek. And as you can see by the blue stars of life there, we've now surrounded Mill Creek with ALS assets so that they can penetrate the four different corners of the Mill Creek area. And we still have Engine 76 in the middle. Now I'm going to talk about the value of Engine 76 and some comparative values to show other areas of data we stitched together. So what I'm showing up there right now, those are our most critical calls. In 2024, our most critical calls we call a MEDEX call, and that's when someone stops breathing or their heart stops. And those are the most time-sensitive calls. If you look at it, the first unit on scene was Engine 76, 27 times. And actually, it was units outside of Mill Creek that were the first ones. Medic 76 was the last one in line to actually get to the most critical calls in Mill Creek. Go to the next slide. So here's another point or thing that we can inform. And this is also the first 6 months of 2025. And Engine 76 was dispatched over 1,300 times. And if you see the percentage there, 38.52%, the majority of the time, the engine responded to calls in Mill Creek. If you look at Medic 76, over 1,000 times, it's 68.98%. Almost 70% of the time, Medic 76 was responding to calls outside the city. Next slide, please. And then here's another one, just looking at what calls are being dispatched inside the jurisdiction of Mill Creek. And you'll see that Engine 76 was 41%, but actually outside units responded into the city of Mill Creek more than any other unit. And Medic 76 was only responding or dispatched to 15% of the calls. So when you start to look at all these different disparate areas of data and how we stitch that together, it starts to paint a much more complex picture on working to find the very best response for Mill Creek. I'm going to just, as I wrap up, I'm just going to zoom out. It is a system of care. It is 15 stations. Some interesting points is right at Station 21, right at the top of the hill from Mill Creek. We have probably one of the most sophisticated technical rescue units and teams that sits up there. To the north of Mill Creek, we have our hazmat team. One of the new additions, while they're not in the city of Mill Creek, are community resource paramedics and community health workers. Here again, understanding the complexity of response, those workers are working with a lot of the people that need the most help. And what they end up doing is they free up our emergency assets. So they're freeing up or preventing calls where our engines, ladder unit, medic units would be tied up. So now those units are available for other emergencies. And in fact, there are studies in other countries that show that work. Actually, they have higher cardiac arrest survival rates where they have community paramedics for the obvious reasons I just stated below. We also have at the top of the hill at Station 21, we have whole blood, which is critical for traumatic when we're bleeding out. That is the only whole blood response in all of Snohomish County, and it sits right at the top of the hill of Mill Creek. And then I think I'll just, the last part, we have our ladder trucks, which are critical for when the rescue comes. But I'll also say we also have a brush truck on the northwest corner, and everyone sees how dry it is, and that is definitely a growing need in our community. All of the work, the hundreds of hours we put into this was an effort to provide the very best and to improve the way we're doing things. I don't think it would be acceptable to, with our growing and changing communities, to not try and get better. And this is us absolutely doing our very best to look at the data and to try and get better. And if we're wrong, we'll change it. When you look at data, when you look at retrospective data, that's the best you can start with. And you can do predictive modeling, you can do simulation modeling, but nothing is good. The best data in research is prospective data. It's the data that you start and you start to follow it after you pull the trigger to do it. But you never know. You can do all the modeling, all the predictions, all the simulations, but you don't know until you go live. You will never have the best data until you go live. And we are going to monitor this. We need a good enough sample size for it to be meaningful. And we believe that's 120 days. But we're going to look at this at 30, 60. We're not going to wait. And if we see a pattern evolving where we need to change, we're going to change, because our whole desire is to do a good job. Our whole desire is to deliver the best care we can. And I think that's the end of my presentation. I think so.
Thank you, Chief Maxwell. Questions or comments from the board members? Board members? Commissioner Rowland.
I think you brought out a lot of the things that EMTs now can do that used to be relegated just to paramedics. Could you give a few examples of things that still only paramedics can do? And then the impact that time has on that? Because you were talking about the fact that most of the most urgent issues, the EMTs are able to stabilize or get a patient, into a state where the paramedics can take over once they get there. But I'm just wondering about that time in regards to the things that only paramedics can do.
Well, a lot of those critical interventions are done by EMTs and paramedics, to be completely honest with you, whether you're doing hemorrhage control, defibrillation, the opiate antidote, anaphylaxis. So those time critical measures really are being done by both. The advanced procedures get into advanced airway, the intubation procedures, that's what paramedics do. It gets complex after that. I mean, I don't want to get too pericard. We decompress chests that are full of air and blood. We give more advanced paramedics give more advanced medications of, say, a rapid heart rate that certain medications will slow down. So it gets just into the more advanced technical things. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments from the board members? Chief, I had a question for you. Can you talk a little bit about Station 76? I noticed it's it's near the eastern border of South County Fire with Surfer. And as you mentioned, the automatic vehicle locator and the through Snow 911, the dispatch service for most of Snohomish County, closest vehicles go. And so can you talk a little bit about Station 76 and it going out of South County Fire into Surfer, whether we want to or not, because of closest unit codes?
Right. Yeah. Thanks for that question. Yeah. The farther we have units closer to the borders of other jurisdictions, that automatic vehicle locator, AVL as we call it, it's going to be able to grab our border units and pull them out of the RFA, and they're going to be serving areas outside the RFA. Whereas units like up on the hill on 21 are going to be more likely to be serving the RFA.
And the data that you've potentially identified and the reason for this test to see what will happen if is the idea behind it to provide better service, or is it to try and reduce the service to Mill Creek?
We are making every effort to improve the service not only to Mill Creek but the RFA as a whole.
If it doesn't pan out after this test period of time, are you going to stick with it? If the test period shows that the service in Mill Creek is actually decreased for not just the first call, but all calls, looking at the data overall, if it shows that the service into Mill Creek is actually decreased, are you going to continue to do it even though it's decreased?
No, in fact, if there are strong patterns emerging before 120 days, we will change.
But what about if the data shows that it actually is providing better service? What then?
Well, then we will probably stick with it, and we'll probably analyze, what decisions we made that contributed to that, and look at the RFA as a whole, learn from that, and see how we can continue to improve.
And as part of that, do you think it's important also, though, to go and speak with the Mill Creek City Council and talk a little bit about the results of that? About either the success or not success of the data test?
Yeah, I think that's something we learned, is we could have and should have done better with the communication, and I think that was a clear learning point for us, and we endeavored to do better with that, and we will absolutely we'll be pretty honest and transparently share what's successful and what's not, and probably what we're trying to do to make it better.
Other questions, comments from board members? Commissioner Chan.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. You have shown us the model many, many times before we approve that. And then we also have what we call dashboard report, which quarterly we review it. We always want the whole system to be efficient. And that's, as a commission, that's the direction we give to you. Basically, if you need more resources, we give to you, right? That is the whole idea. So I think, I saw some of the comments in the thing is that, because most general citizen not understanding the dispatch and everything else. I myself being on the Snow 911 board for 4 years along, and I think that you mentioned that we are really, to me, is the nearest vehicle, right? That's where dispatched. It's no longer the station itself. So but general public don't understand that, right? So that we really need to give to them in a sense. The station is kind of the garage, right, so to speak. I know when we first started, everything, they call the station and station respond, but now is station no longer respond. I think the network itself is very critical. And I think that's what like a dashboard. And then you always remember when we go to us, we say, okay, how come this particular area is not responding as good? So I would say that we need to do a much better job including myself, the commissioner. I need to be explained to the people that we're not doing it every day. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, that's correct. We're running around 100 calls a day. Our crews train extensively, so they're actively moving around the RFA with training activities and response activities and transport activities.
Any other questions, comments from board members? Commissioner Rowland.
So historically, before Mill Creek joined, 76 was being serviced under contract by Surfer, correct?
Yes.
And looking at the maps, I guess, if you were in the shoes of Surfer looking at all of their stations, at that time, did it make sense to have paramedics in Station 76 because of its location in relationship to the rest of their stations?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. And at that time, they had a one paramedic medic unit in there. And I can't surmise what their decision making, but it was on the far, I mean, we have mutual aid, as everyone understands, but it was also on the far reaches of their area, which may have influenced how they staffed that station, but
Yeah, the reason I brought it up is because looking at the maps, when you have an event like the annexation of Mill Creek, it's not football season yet, but everybody knows zone defense, where they have their specific areas so that if anybody comes into that area, they respond to it in football. Same goes with the RFA. We've got our stations strategically located throughout, but where we put our players really is important based off of the response times, based off the call volumes, and we have to look at it as a whole. We don't look at the cities any differently than we do the unincorporated areas of the RFA. And whenever we're making changes like this, it really is, I think, to look at what will make the whole work better. And we do need to be cognizant of the fact that changes like this could have unintended consequences, and I'm glad to know that we're keeping an eye on it and that we've have an active review process for this particular one. I would definitely agree that we could have done better communicating it ahead of time. There's a variety of different things that we do as part of our operations, changes that we make strategically. And the magic of it is, and kind of the curse of it is, when they are changes that improve service or keep service at the current level, it's transparent to the people that we serve. They don't notice any difference if things are the same. They may notice if it's better, but most of the times it's transparent to them. I think this is an example of knowing what this, change was being made, but not having the greater kind of context in which it was being made and understanding the effects of it. I'm glad that you made this presentation to us tonight and to the people that are in this room, and especially those that may be online. I hope it helped explain the changes. And I know that another piece of context that's important for people to understand is just the shortage of paramedics, and we're sending numerous EMTs to paramedic school every single year to keep up with both attrition, the increased demand, and I'm glad that our legislature has made changes in the law that allows our EMTs to do these life-saving, important activities before the paramedics arrive.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, we own that we should have done a better job with communication, absolutely. We also need to do a better job of explaining the incredible value of our captain EMTs and our firefighter EMTs, and the value that brings when an engine arrives, and that care doesn't wait till the paramedics arrive on scene. Care starts when the engine arrives on scene with our highly trained EMTs. And to your first point, it is a system. And as I mentioned earlier last week, incidentally, during the Mill Creek City Council, we were able to handle 4 simultaneous calls, including, I think there's 2 or more units on every single call. And that's a system. And one station, even with 2 units, would have most likely have handled 1 call and not been able to handle 4 without the mutual aid. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments from the board members? Yes, Ms.
I'm just
Blankenship.
inquiring. I have a couple of questions that have come in our Q&A from members of the public. Would you like to take those?
No, we're gonna finish with this portion of it, and then we'll move on to public comment immediately
Ask
after
those
this.
questions then. Thank you.
Yes, yeah, we're almost there. One last request. Any questions or comments from board members? Commissioner Furnoff.
Yeah, just look to our PIO. I think we had a discussion once about our monthly run numbers, and it was somewhere around 3,200 or so, putting us at about 136,000 a year. And is that right?
We run about 38,000 calls per year.
38,000. Okay. All right. 38,000. That's a tremendous amount of energy being expelled by our labor force out there. We do a tremendous job, and it's a blended effect. We work with neighboring jurisdictions, Mukilteo, also with Surfer and all of the other agencies. And as our union president in the back will tell you, it's not a single lift. It's all hands on deck when there is an issue. And we work very effectively, as I think Jason Isotelo, our chief, is going to point out this evening in our blended training and so forth. So it's really a whole community approach, and not one single station makes or breaks the difference. It's actually part of the system, as Chief Maxwell has pointed out. So I just wanted to reiterate that.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board members? If not, then we are ready to move forward then to the public comment tonight, item number 7. And as I do, I'll start first in the room, then I'll go on to the Zoom platform, and then come back to the room for anybody else in the room that wants to address the board. From the list that we have so far, our first guest to speak tonight will be Mayor Brian Holtzclaw from City of Mill Creek. Please come forward to our microphone there. Good evening, Mayor Holtzclaw.
Just push the-
There we go.
Yeah.
There you
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Mayor Holtzclaw, just for a second. We do have, well, you likely have a number of people speaking tonight in public comment, so everybody will be limited to 3 minutes.
I hope you'll afford me a little more than 3 minutes under the circumstances. So please give me a little leniency. Well, let me start. For the record, I'm Brian Holtzclaw, the mayor of Mill Creek. And for the record, I'd like my comments to be reflected in the official minutes of this meeting. I've only been here once before, and it was a joyous occasion about 3 years ago when we were here celebrating the annexation of Mill Creek to South County. This is not one of those occasions. I am here on behalf of my entire city council. Councilmember Steckler is here with me. The rest of the members couldn't be here because we weren't anticipating this issue coming up because we knew nothing about it. I'm here on behalf of our city staff. Our city manager, Martin Yamamoto, is behind me. And I'm here on behalf of the almost 22,000 residents of Mill Creek. I've been searching for the right word to use tonight. And the word I keep coming back to, without mincing words, is betrayal. Councilman Chair Kenny, you heard from the council last week. I felt compelled to come tonight so the rest of you could hear how the city feels about this decision that apparently has been made. I'm gonna go a little off script because I was struck. I had a different reaction than you did, quite candidly, and being quite frank about this presentation. The presentation, the discussion that just preceded this tells me that what I have to say isn't really gonna matter. You've preempted everything and all the issues that I've raised, and before the city has officially stated its position, expressing its concerns and objections over this decision. We're basically communicating the message that it doesn't matter. This is a done deal. I want to provide a little context for my comments, and I have 5 points. And as Councilmember Steckler would attest, I don't belabor words. I get right to the point, so I will not take long. In 21 and 22, the city had a tough decision to make. Our contract with Surfer was coming up. We'd been with Surfer for over 20 years. We had to look at all the options for providing fire service to our city. There were, I don't want to say no good options, but because the cost of fire service was going to go up no matter where we chose to go. Ultimately, however, we weren't satisfied with the way the negotiations went with Surfer, and we ultimately, after working closely with South County, decided that annexation to South County was in the best interest of our residents. And we recommended that to our voters. A major factor in that decision for the council was the Fire Station 76 and the staffing levels at that fire station. That was an important factor throughout the discussions with the district. Now, we knew that in future, the district was looking at other locations for fire stations so that fire service may not always be provided from Fire Station 76. But it was the implicit, if not explicit understanding that as long as the fire service was provided from Fire Station 76, the staffing levels would remain. And that's what we represented to the voters. We jointly worked with the fire district staff on the statement to the voters. And that statement in the voters pamphlet, the explanation of what they were being asked to vote upon says, if annexation is approved, 5-person firefighters, paramedic crews will continue operating from the Mill Creek Fire Station. It does not say, if annexation approved, Mill Creek residents will get a system of care. It says 5-person firefighters, paramedics crew will continue to operate from that fire station. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That was the promise that was represented to the voters who ultimately approved the annexation with 76% of the vote. So that gets to my 5 points that I want to make. The first is the operational justifications. I did state last week in our council meeting that I had no basis to question the operational decision that was made because I'm not a firefighter. But that was because I had absolutely no information and the city had no information whatsoever on how the decision was arrived at, why it was arrived at, what data you were looking at. We were blindsided by this decision. I've had many conversations over the last week with various people, including representatives from the union. The result of those conversations is that I have some serious questions, and so does the city, as to the operational justification for this change. But I don't want to get into the weeds of those issues because my second point is The operational justifications don't matter. What matters here is the promise that was made to the residents of Mill Creek that if they approve the annexation, the staffing levels at Fire Station 76 would continue. They agreed with that and they've overwhelmingly approved it with 76% of the vote. What have they got since then? They've got a levy lid lift, they've got an increase in the benefit charge, and now they're having their staffing reduced from what their promise would occur. I think Councilmember Steckler said it well last week. This feels to us like nothing but a bait and switch. My third point is this is particularly galling to the city because the city is the only, as we can tell from this deployment plan, it's the only city where service is being reduced. It's not happening in Linwood. It's not happening in Edmonds. It's not happening in Montlake Terrace. It's not happening in Briar. In fact, my understanding is in Edmonds and Briar, the service, the staffing at the fire stations that serve those communities is actually increasing. Mill Creek is the only city that is being impacted by this. So when I hear discussion about there's hard to find paramedics, why is it that the paramedics in Mill Creek are the ones that are being cut? Fourth point, it was touched upon, and it's nice to hear some acknowledgement of the screw up by the district, but quite frankly, it was nothing but that. We learned about this from a resident in a comment about 5 weeks ago. We had no idea this was coming. At no point, Chair Kinney, did you reach out to me as a fellow elected official to say, hey, by the way, we're considering this change at the city? There was no discussion at the staff level whatsoever. Chief Eastman did indicate to Martin that some analysis was underway, but at no point was any data provided, any indication of what the decision or what was being contemplated, let alone any indication that the decision was made. And what's particularly frustrating is that while 76% of our voters approve this annexation, there's absolutely zero outreach to our community ahead of this decision being made. I expressed this last week. I'm still stunned at how this was handled, or should I say mishandled. My last point is, I think you have a legal problem with the RFA agreement. After we execute or approve the notice of intent to annex, the next step in the process was for the district to amend its RFA agreement to provide for the amendment or the annexation of Mill Creek. In that agreement, it says, quoting, effective on the annexation date, the RFA will initially adopt the City of Mill Creek Standards of Coverage document for the City of Mill Creek's jurisdictional boundary area. As such, services, levels of service, standards of coverage, development standards, and customer expectations on the annexation date shall remain unaffected. And if you look through the interlocal agreement documents, it speaks to what that standard of coverage is. Quoting, fire station staffing. The city fire station shall be staffed 24 hours per day, 7 days per week with 5 personnel, one of whom shall be a paramedic. 3 staff shall be assigned to the fire apparatus and 2 staff shall be assigned to the EMS unit. The RFA agreement also provides that the revision of the annexation of the City of Mill Creek section of the RFA plan is subject to amendment or revision only by a majority vote of the RFA governing board. As far as I can tell, that has not happened. You did in June provide some operational roadmap looking in the future of changes that might be contemplated, but there has been no amendment to the RFA agreement. Absent an amendment to the RFA agreement, implementing this change is a clear violation of the RFA agreement. So to wrap things up, I trust you can sense my frustration that I believe is reflective of the way our entire community feels. You know, there was a lot of goodwill that was developed during the process to lead to the annexation. And I would say that with how this has transpired and the decision that's being contemplated or has been made, leaves that goodwill hanging by a thread. You know, and the last thing I'll say is I was struck too when I walked into this room and saw what I assume are your core values on the back of the wall behind you. And I'll tell a little funny story. The first time I was in New York, 21 years ago, I was riding in a New York City cab out to LaGuardia to head home. And on the back behind the driver, they have the list of the 10 rules of the city cab drivers. And as we're flying down, I don't know what street in the middle of New York City, clearly exceeding the speed limit, I was just counting the rules that they were violating. If you stand by those values that are behind you, the integrity, trust, and respect, you'll correct this and honor the promise that was made to the residents of Mill Creek and not redeploy the medics away from Fire Station 76. Thank you for the opportunity to provide these comments.
Thank you, Mayor Holscott. Next up, we have Martin Yamamoto, City Manager Yamamoto. Yeah, you don't wish to make public comment? No? Okay. Next, I have Penny Coyne. I wasn't sure. It also indicates general. Did you want to speak after the Mill Creek items? Okay. All right. That's what I've got for in the room. Is there anybody else in the room that wishes to make public comment to the board? Then we're going to go to our Zoom platform. Yes, sir. Go ahead and come forward to our microphone.
If you're speaking about something else, not necessarily Mill Creek, do I wait or do I speak now?
You can speak now. Yep. This is general public comment. And sir, please state your name for the record and go ahead.
Peter Cowley. My concern is, in the past, I have not seen integrity or trust with South County Fire. A number of years ago, when the city of Bothell wanted to annex our community, firefighters from South County Fire went out into my neighborhood and spread things that were not true. And I found that very annoying. The initiative failed. They attempted to annex a second time, and the same thing happened. Okay? Firefighters, in my opinion, in South County Fire have become this is my term, a paramilitary organization that has become too powerful. They are too big, and they demand far too high compensation. I don't know if you guys publish the salaries, the overtime, and the benefits that you provide for their firefighters so the public can view them, but I think it would be something that would be helpful so we can see the compensation packages that the firefighters, the paramedics are getting. Salaries of over $150,000, $200,000 a year are not uncommon. Is that not correct, Chief? Yeah, and I feel you work one day on, one day off, one day on, 5 days off. Studies show that people aren't necessarily at their prime when they're working over 12 hours. You know, I look at my property tax bill going up consistently. The value of my home, quote, has gone up. Inflation has gone up, which automatically provides what seems to me a blank check to the fire department to just get more and more money and more high compensation. Members of the committee up here in the past have had some sort of connection with fire, I think, or align with the demands and the desires of the firefighters. I remember I went to a city council meeting down in Briar because I was looking at getting a home there. And when the fire department was proposing this to the city there, more than a dozen firefighters show up at the meeting, you know, pressing the point that we need to have Briar join the RFA, South County Fire. They're too big, they're too powerful, and they demand too much money of our tax dollars. And I don't believe they should be in the ambulance business, aid cars. There are plenty of companies that will be more than happy to sign contracts with cities and provide those services. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Okay, anybody else in the room? Then I'm going to go to the Zoom platform. Not seeing anybody else in the room. I did ask her, she had a general issue and wanted to go after the Mill Creek issue. So let's go to the Zoom platform. And Ms. Blankenship, can you let me know who wants to speak first?
So this is a little bit different than our normal public comment because these are questions. Are you allowing a question to be asked and answered, or can I just
that-
ask the question?
This is public comment, so people can make comments, people can ask questions. It's not a debate between the board and anybody else. So you
The
can ask a
first-
question from somebody.
The first question from Please Serve Mill Creek. Do paramedics and EMTs share the same scope of practice?
Thank you for that question. What's the next question? Or is there somebody live that wants to
There's
do
the
public
next,
comment?
the next question. Who was responsible for this decision and why weren't Mill Creek city leaders involved in any of this? The
Next
next
question.
comment.
Comment?
If EMTs are so amazing, why do you even have paramedics? Based on this presentation, it doesn't sound like they are needed. And the final, and this is Edie Byer. She would like to speak.
Okay, that sounds good. Ms. Byer, go ahead and unmute yourself. I think Ms. Blankenship is activating you. Unmute yourself and then you have, you can address the board 3 minutes.
Uh-oh.
Ms. Byer, do
Is
you
there
want
an
to?
echo? Huh.
No, it's okay.
Oh, okay.
What, did you want
Hi,
to come
thank,
on? Ms. Byer, did you want to come on video?
oh, sure.
Thank
Huh.
you.
I go on Zoom every day at work, but I never use it on my personal computer.
If you
Video.
don't mind, that would be nice.
No, I will if I can figure it out. Here, auto setting, video. Video. Okay. Oh, now my dog's gonna start barking. Hello, thank you. I already sent an email, so I will be very short. I guess one thing is I did send an email and the only response I received was from the fire union president. Nobody from the fire board responded to my email, not even a thank you for your response. I don't know where I work, just customary, that's how we communicate. I don't really need to say much more because I really, I thank Mayor Holtzclaw. I think he eloquently said what we all believe. And so I'll be short, but really when we annexed, I voted because staffing was going to stay the same. I work for a hospital. I'm not going to name the hospital. I work for a hospital. I work in cardiology and lives depend on getting service. And more so, I'm not stealing this from Brian, but I put in my notes because I saw on the wall on the Zoom, your leadership, integrity, trust, respect, and excellence. And that is broken. And the other thing is the union president of the fire board, he did respond. And my concern is the firemen and other people who are working the trenches also are not happy with this decision. And so that's a big concern to me because they probably understand what's going on. And as I said in my email, then the NFPA recommends 4 firefighters and 2 paramedics, and we now are down to 3. And that's it. I appreciate your guys' time. And if we want to start communicating better, maybe we can get responses when we spend time writing our information. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Byer. Ms. Blankenship, any other comments online?
Yes, there's one other person who's just raised their hand, JC.
JC. So JC, can you bring JC onto the meeting, and
Mhm.
JC, can you unmute yourself and then state your name for the record and come on the video if you would. JC. Last opportunity, JC. All right, that doesn't seem to be working. We can come back to that perhaps at the end of the list. Ms. Blankenship, let's move on to if there is somebody else that would like to address the board from our Zoom platform.
No others.
All right. One last opportunity. Anybody else on the Zoom platform that would like to address the board? Ms. Blankenship? Nope. Okay. Well, then we'll come back one last time to in the room. Anybody else that would like to address the board here in the room? Ms. Coyne, go ahead and come forward. Good evening.
Good evening, board, members of the South County Fire liaisons, staff, guests. My name is Penny Coyne. For those of you who don't know me, I'm an ordinary citizen who cares very deeply about first responders, firefighters, police officers, and members of the military. And something happened in the last month. And I know that you sitting there don't usually want to toot your own horn. And I hope that I'm not stepping on Chief Maxwell's upcoming chief's report. But something happened in June that I want to toot someone's horn for them because I know they won't. If you recall, in June, there was an airplane crash just off the Mukilteo Lighthouse. And it was on TV. You saw the plane coming down. You saw people running out. And fortunately, the plane bellied into the water. And people along the shore were able to get the pilot and 2 passengers out. But there was one person who happened to be on the beach at that time. And if you believe in divine providence, as I do, that person was the perfect person to be there because in an emergency, this individual has handled numerous emergencies. And that person is Commissioner Michael Fernahoff. He was the first one there telling Aaron, call 911. He was the first one to talk to the fire crew that arrived in about 5 minutes, which is really fast, and tell them exactly what was going on. And I told him that it had to be divine providence because if I was on that airplane, that's the person. If there was anybody else besides a first responder, I'd want a FEMA guy there who knew something about emergencies. So Michael, you won't toot your own horn. So I'm going to say congratulations to you. Thank you. Thank you for being there. And I know you were just kind of hanging out, but it was really the right person at the right place at the right time. And had that crash gone differently, it would have been disastrous if you weren't there, I think. So thank you for that. When I came in tonight, and I'm going to be very brief. When I came in tonight, I only had one thing to talk about, and that was Michael. But after taking a look at him today, Michael, stand up for a second, if you will, if you wouldn't mind. You look really spiffy in that outfit. And I know that you all have been talking about attire for the board. And I'm one of those, I think, as distinguished members of our community, as elected officials, I would personally love to see you all in that type of attire where you are going out as a respected, distinguished, elected official, and anyone who walks down the street knows that you're someone in command. And I appreciate the fact that you look like that. So thank you. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Coyne. Okay, that is the conclusion. Was there any other request for public comment in the room? Yes, Councilmember Steckler, please step forward and up to our microphone. Please have a seat there. And then if you don't mind stating your name for the record and
Sure.
3 minutes.
I'm John Steckler. city councilman of the city of Mill Creek, resident of Mill Creek for a little over 30 years. I wasn't going to speak, but I think I would feel terrible if I didn't get up and say a couple of things. Number one, as a council member, I cannot say anything more than what our mayor said. So I agree with everything he said. But as a citizen, I have a couple of other comments. And yesterday was, many of you know, National Night Out, where around the country we celebrate our police officers and firefighters. And it was a very unusual National Night Out. My 10 years on the board, as on the council, I had a number of citizens come up to me. And so I wanted to explain a couple of things that were said to me. The greatest concern that was felt was that we lost our paramedic. You could talk about the fact that we had access to other paramedics now in 21. We've always had access to other of your fire stations, but we've lost our paramedics, and paramedics are very different. On a personal note, 4 years ago, I had my hip became displaced. If anybody's ever had a hip displacement or a shoulder displaced, it is a horrific amount of pain. Luckily, within under 2 minutes, a paramedic was at my door from Station 76 and was able to give me the significantly more pain medication than any EMT would give, but in fact, had the resources to go and get additional pain medication to at least calm me down enough for transportation and to avoid any further damage that could have happened to me. So the difference between a paramedic and an EMT is very clear to me from personal experience. Another thing that everybody keeps asking for is the data, and thank you for presenting that today. We finally got a chance to look at some of the data. We heard about hundreds and hundreds of hours, but the thing that I looked at up there was that the data, if I read that correctly, was between January and June of 2025, which then prompted an action that happened in August of 2025. To me, 6 months is not a trend. 6 months is not a data, does not constitute a decision to this magnitude. I would take into account the summer hours, the holiday hours, the times of the year. So the fact that this was only 6 months worth of data was a shock to me and a shock to a decision that was made. Last, I would like an answer. The mayor mentioned it briefly, but it has, as you can imagine, this is a piece of information that is run throughout the city streets of Mill Creek because of this decision. And that is Briar. Why is it a city with almost half the population of Mill Creek now has about 40% more personnel and 50% more vehicles than Mill Creek, and it's a reduction? That has caused a lot. We would love to know why that city needs to have that much more equipment than our city. And I think the bottom line, the mayor said it, everyone's going to say it over and over again. You reduced our services to the citizens, to the city. You've reduced our services. As far as we're concerned, we had those for 20 years with Surfer, and now they're gone. It was a bad decision and badly communicated. We can agree on the latter. It was badly communicated. Both sides agree with that. As to the decision, we are confident that it was a bad decision. I'm not so sure you're confident that it's a bad decision, but based on the values and what the mayor said, whenever in business, whenever somebody makes a really bad decision, the best thing to do is go back. Let's go back, unwind it, and let's see if we can do it again a different way, maybe with communication, maybe with some other compromises. But this is not going to ever feel good to the city of Mill Creek. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Councilmember Steckler. All right, that brings us to the end of public comment, and we are ready to move forward in the agenda. Commissioner Rowland.
So traditionally, public comment is definitely not a time that we want to get into, back and forth exchanges, debates. I'm sure the council member can relate to that. That having been said, I think it's really important in this instance that we do respond to some of the things. I'm going to speak for myself. I don't want to speak for the other members of the board. I definitely understand the concerns that have been brought up tonight. I think it is important that we operate with integrity, especially with the cities that we serve, and the unincorporated areas as well. And part of that is having good communication, and that was something that whether it was an oversight or whether it was people thinking that it was another person's, the chief was going to do it. No, the chair was going to do it. Sometimes these things happen. I don't know the details of it, but regardless, I think it really should have been a priority. And for that, I want to apologize. The questions that were asked, I think we did our best to get answers to some of them. The differences between the paramedics and the EMTs, why we need paramedics. I think you brought up a good example that was a little easier to understand than hemothoraxes and pneumothoraxes and all those. But we definitely need paramedics, and we need them in the right place at the right time, and we need to be able to make changes when necessary. That having been said, after hearing the feedback, reading the feedback, I apologize to Edie. I didn't get a chance to email you back. Your email came across last night, and I've been working all day, and this is the first time I was a couple minutes late because I'm not used to coming in on Wednesday nights, coming straight from work, so I didn't get a chance to say anything. But I want you to know that we do listen to the feedback. I think the intent of having a presentation beforehand was just to give context for people that may have been coming into the room with limited information as to what EMTs can and can't do, what are the impacts. So I think it was important to get that out ahead of time. I would like to see if the board would be amenable to, and I first want to ask the staff, if there were to be a pause in this implementation of, let's just say 60 days or something like that, what would be the impacts? I know we've already started moving in that direction, but what would be the impacts of making that decision?
Well, we're at day 20 of the 120 we spoke of. I'd have to research that to give you an informed answer.
Okay. I don't want to make a knee-jerk reaction and reel it back when that could cause other issues. I do want to see what the impacts of that would be if we did put a pause on it. I know it's maybe inconvenient for the data and, the people involved, but I think it's something that we should at least talk about once we know the implications, and then make an informed decision on how to proceed forward, so that we're taking the input of our stakeholders and our partners from the city and from our residents. So if we could get that information by our next work session, which is next week, we could at least talk about it.
And just so the board knows, we do have an item on the agenda later for discussion of this issue.
Okay.
So we
We
can
can-
have
we
an
can
opportunity to
continue
talk
with
a
that.
little bit more at that time. Commissioner Shannon?
Yeah, I just want to address to what Mayor said, that, well, his speech doesn't matter, it does matter. And council member, your speeches matter. All 7 of us are individual elected officials, just like you, the city council. And we are here to serve everybody. We're not here just for the benefit of Sub-County Fire. So I really do not like the word bait and switch, which is no intention there. Individually, we don't benefit any of that. Okay, so we definitely will take your words really seriously, and we will consider what the next, but let you know that. And when we have a news station near the Linwood High School that's closer to Mill Creek. And that, when we have that station, we decide on that spot because we're thinking about Mill Creek too. Because to us, the response time, we have a dashboard report. That's what we locate. That's, as a commissioner, critically, watching that. Okay, so it's not one person here make a decision. It's 7 of us, just like the city council, make the decision. A second person I want to address, the person who addressed on the annexations and on the, none of us are, I think we have one person in here was a prior associate. I personally, I'm a CPA. I have no, before I got this, I have no relationship with the fire service. So if you go back and look at our previous years, we have sometimes 3 years did not resolve the contract because we're in negotiation. So we are not being affected by anybody. So as a taxpayer, I want to save myself money too. So I hope you have confidence that we are not just rubber stamping in here. And I definitely like your comments. Please come in if you have any comments and write to us or whatever. I will personally respond to you. Thank you.
Okay, that is the end of public comment, and thank you. And we are ready then to move forward in the agenda to item number 8, which is a continuation of the fire chief's report. Chief Maxwell, issues other than Mill Creek and deployment plan.
Thank you, Chair. I have 3 topics. I will be brief. We've definitely experienced a higher than normal volume of brush fires this year I wanted to report on, and some of them, they generally tend to be a larger, like quarter or half acre, and that is different for us. And, while the investigations are ongoing, but, most of them are human-made, and we have even seen, firework debris outside, way outside the 4th of July, related to some of these. Not that that's the exact cause, but it is a point of interest that it does seem to be a much drier year, and it's definitely been reflected in our brush fires and the size of them. We had 2 definitely deep into the green belts all the way to the Eastmont, up along the Lower Larimer, out into the highlands. We can go to the next slide, please. I'm not sure, Christy, if you know, it was dozens and dozens of locations that all of our crews and chiefs and volunteers and public outreach were visiting last night. Go ahead.
Yes, we were across the area and we stopped by 2 of the larger events in Mill Creek and Mount Lake Terrace, and also we're out in neighborhoods in Linwood and Edmonds. And we just appreciate being able to be a part of those events and all of the volunteers and staff who helped make that happen, and the firefighters who had a great time showing off the engine and introducing themselves to residents.
Thank you. And then the last slide, I just wanted to make the commissioners aware, we are moving forward with the pilot or the test as drone as first responders. This is being, we're supporting it, but the lead is Snow 911. And if you are interested in observing anything, I can connect you with DC Curtis, who is our lead liaison with SNOCOM right now, if you want to go up to SNOCOM and see any of the activities during this pilot, please let me know. And that concludes my chief's report. Thank you, Chair.
Questions from the board members for Chief Maxwell? Questions? Chief, I did have a question for you on the brush fire at the Highlands.
Yes.
Kind of gully or area between the divisions. I know I saw an email that you turned that over to DNR to do the mop up after some period of time. I was curious if you know how long was DNR like on scene or handling that to kind of see if it didn't spark up again.
Right. I don't know specifically. I can just go based on my wildland experience. I would expect them to do a good overhaul. They're probably 3 to 8 hours. And part of that is not just the size, the terrain. I was out on both of those, and some of the terrain there where the fire was near vertical. And one of the hazards there is when you get dead standing trees and they burn through the stumps and they fall over on any kind of incline, they roll back into the flammable material outside the black line and reignite fires. So they have to usually do some chainsaw work, and sometimes they do some ditches to prevent log rolls down that reignite new fires downslope.
But it wouldn't be like a multi-day mop-up operation.
No, not based on the size that we had.
Okay, great. Any other questions for the chief? Commissioner Fernhoff.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, but we also deployed the drone on that fire with DC Curtis.
We did. Both fires appeared to have been started the night before. It was dark. It was hard to locate. The people who were calling in couldn't locate it. And then our crews were usually going there. One of them was in the 4 o'clock hour. I think the other one was 6 o'clock hour. We did fly the drone, and we were able to use the FLIR, and it identified It was after the fact, but it could have been used if we, were more operational in locating the fire.
Good. That's pretty exciting. Thank you.
Commissioner Rowland.
Something happened last week, I think it was last week or week before, that I haven't had happen before, and that's my little Alexa device with the screen on it. As I was passing it, I saw a South County fire truck. So instantly I tapped the screen, and it was the news article about the truck that had gotten stolen from the scene of the fire. I know it's been a number of weeks since our last meeting, and that's something that, with everything else going on, I was just curious, I guess, what has been done are we looking at changes in policy? Is it something where it's going to be just a occupational hazard, for lack of a better term, that to do our jobs, the practices that we have that could lead to this? I think Everett, the week before or 2 weeks before, had a fire truck stolen. So it definitely is something that's happening at least a little bit more often. I just wanted to know what our response was.
Yeah, great question. Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, the team, definitely the deputy chief team met and looked at, what guidelines and policies can we change? And logistics chief DC Curtis is looking at how do we retrofit our fleet without giving security information.
Understood.
We're on top of it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the chief? If not, thank you, chief. All right, that moves us forward on the agenda then to item number 9, which is our legal report. We have Matt Paxton, our general counsel, standing in for Rich Davis. Good evening, Mr. Paxton.
Good evening. Thank you, Commissioner. I can report that Richard Davis is currently on a sabbatical, but returning on Monday. So I have been assisting in his stead, and I don't have a specific report, any legal updates at this time. So I'll keep it short.
That sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Paxton. All right, that moves us forward then in the agenda to item number 10, which is the union report. And I believe we have President Moore with us this evening. Good evening, President Moore.
Good evening, Chair Kenny, Commissioners. All right. I don't think the mayor could have said it any better, honestly. He summed it up pretty good, but I still will read what I prepared for you guys. And so I genuinely appreciate everybody coming in here to speak on this issue within the city of Mill Creek and the redeployment in itself. So I'm here tonight, obviously, on behalf of Local 1828 to speak about what's been happening in the city of Mill Creek and what it means for our members, the public, and the trust we're all supposed to have in each other. Let's start with the facts. Station 76 obviously has had 5-person staffing since 2011. That was made possible by an EMS levy that the voters approved in the city of Mill Creek prior to annexation into the RFA. Because they wanted strong, reliable fire and EMS response. Since then, Mill Creek has grown, the call volume has increased, and yet somehow today there are fewer firefighters at that station than before. Mill Creek is the only city, as the mayor put it, that joined the RFA and ended up with less. That's not right. It breaks trust with the public and the firefighters who serve them. And it doesn't follow those core values. There's been a lot of talk lately about how we've upstaffed by 3 at the last Mill Creek City Council meeting, but that's not the full picture. What really happened was we converted 2 peak activity units into 24-hour shifts. That added 4 firefighters at night, but the daytime staffing numbers did not increase. There's been a lot of talk also, So when people say we're better staffed, I have to push back. That math doesn't reflect what our members are dealing with, obviously, every day. There's also been talk of drawdown units, but let's just call it what it really is. It's cross-staffing. 1 crew covering multiple rigs. They're covering an engine and an aid car. We've seen it before and we know what it costs. Cross-staffing stretches people thin, it delays the response, and it increases risk for both firefighters and the public. It's not a long-term solution, and it shouldn't be treated like it is either. NFPA 1710 lays out national standards for response. Because they're proven to keep people safe, that means 4 firefighters on an engine, 2 paramedics on ALS transport units, 2 EMTs on BLS units. That's what it takes to do the job right. I've heard many of the board members over the past years say the goal is to become an ISO Class 1 agency. That would benefit the taxpayers, it would improve department reputation and support our crews. Well, NFPA 1710 is how we get there. Not by cutting corners and reducing readiness. Chair Kenny, I appreciate your willingness to continue those conversations after the June workshop when many of you on the board expressed interest in reaching that 4-person staffing goal. Another concern with the redeployment was moving the battalion chief out of Station 21 and further south. It has gutted our command presence in the northeast corner of the RFA, impacting Mill Creek and the surrounding areas, especially during the fire-confirmed residential and commercial incidents. The command absence is felt. Nobody has shown any operational data to justify that decision. It weakens our deployment model and leaves a major hole in our coverage. When I attended the June workshop, I said that the roadmap had good elements, especially around reaching staffing goals. But I also raised serious concerns about reducing staffing at Station 76 during that meeting and the use of drawdown units. Engine 76 was not identified as a drawdown unit during this June workshop, and it was later added after that workshop. What's frustrating is that much of the plan changed after the workshop without the union even at the table. It feels like the decisions are being made without input from the people doing the job and without transparency to the public paying for the service. To our members in Mill Creek and to the people who live there, I see you, I hear your frustration. I know it feels like this decision came out of nowhere. And I know it feels like the message was your safety doesn't matter as much. I want you to know that's not true, and I'm not going to let that message stand. Now, yes, we supported converting the PAUs to 24-hour staffing and many of the improvements to the southern parts of the RFA. That is a positive step. Those improvements were needed, but in addition to the staffing we had in Mill Creek. Taking from one area to improve another is not how we build a stronger, more resilient department. It's just robbing Peter to pay Paul. And yes, we're also in the middle of contract negotiations, right? And it's uncomfortable for me to come out here and speak out on these kind of issues, right? When you know that it might actually have an impact on how the flavor of those negotiations go at the table. But if raising safety concerns risks retaliation, we'll still raise them. We'll not trade safety for silence. Here's what we're asking for. Restore the 5-person staffing at Station 76. Stop using our drawdown language to cover up cross-staffing and end the cross-staffing altogether. Be honest and transparent with your firefighters and the public. Keep the promises made to the cities that join the RFA and follow real national standards like NFPA 1710, not shortcuts. And I'll end with this. We're not here to be dramatic, obviously. We're here to speak the truth because the members we represent and the communities we serve all deserve it. I know it's a long night for the board, so I'll close our report there. To the residents and the union members who showed up tonight to speak, thank you. And to the board, thank you for listening. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the board members for President Moore? Questions for President Moore? President Commissioner Lawrence?
Yes.
Question? Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Lawrence.
President Moore, appreciate you're having a difference of opinion, but to use the term "be honest" as a kind of a slur, a little bit of a slam, don't think you should really use that kind of term, a difference of opinion, because I do think our board and staff are doing their best in bringing in honesty isn't quite right, not quite the right term. Uh, I think should be a little bit of a shame to use it like that. Thank you.
Any other
Yeah.
questions for President Moore?
Thanks for the comments, Commissioner Lawrence. However, I would disagree with you. Obviously, I think that you didn't communicate with the city. You weren't honest about the changes that were being made. You haven't been honest about what drawdown units actually is. It's cross-staffing.
Other questions for President Moore? Other questions for President Moore? Thank you, President Moore.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that moves us forward on the agenda then to unfinished business, item number 11. And we are going to start with item 11A, which is organizational roadmap, the annual accountability report with Chief Financial Officer Chris Bothwell. Good evening, Mr. Bothwell.
Good evening, Chair. Good evening, Commissioners. All right, so I have 3 presentations for you tonight. This first one, well, I'm going to go through them kind of quickly because I know you all have a lot on your plate tonight. If I go too fast, please stop me. This first item is the annual roadmap accountability update. This is the first time we're doing this, so we're interested in any feedback you have. This report is to check in on the roadmap assumptions and monitor implementation progress, ensuring that actual financial conditions are considered as we move forward. We are just in the process of implementing the roadmap, so there's not a lot to share there. That'll be a change that'll come in future years, but we are going to focus on the roadmap assumptions tonight. So the roadmap identified 5 points for reporting every year. They're general inflation. We're going to look at national CPIU for that, labor inflation, and that we're going to focus on local CPIW. We have assessed value change for the coming year and new construction values. The 4th item there is actual levies. So that's our property tax levies for the general fire levy and the EMS levy, and the benefit charge rates. And then our final item will be the staffing factor and overtime. And overtime is one that we're not going to look at tonight because it's really intended to tell us how we're doing with the staffing factor and whether or not that's having an impact on overtime. So since we haven't implemented, we don't have any data on the implementation of the roadmap, that one's going to be omitted tonight. So this first one is general inflation. And again, this is based on national CPIU. So headline inflation from June to June. The 2026 actual is 2.7%. The roadmap forecast had it at 3.5%. So we have an actual forecast actual to forecast variance of 0.8%, which is a fairly small but positive variance. And what this means is that the inflationary pressures on the upcoming budget will be slightly less than what we had forecasted in the roadmap, which that's positive. We saw something very similar with labor inflation. So again, CPIW for our area, and that's June to June. 2026, we have a number of 2.6%. The forecast had that at 3.5%. So another positive variance of just under 1%. And same as the last one, this means that we're going to have less inflationary pressure on the budget this year than what we had forecasted in the roadmap forecast. This third one is assessed value and new construction. So we don't have data specific to our jurisdiction for the change in assessed value or new construction, but we do have some data. And so our best estimate of where this is going to land for South County's taxing district would be at a 5% increase in assessed value. The roadmap had that at 4%. So like the others, this is a positive variance, meaning that assessed value grew by 1% more than what we had forecasted. For new construction, we forecast that at 1%. We've consistently done that. We see some variations from year to year on the new construction value. Last year, we had 1.1%. We don't have any data on this. Over the time being, we're just reporting it at what's in what the forecast had, was just 1%. So this next one is current year levy and benefit charge rates. And so here we're tracking the rates compared to the funding guiding principles. So Again, those new principles haven't really been implemented yet, but this is kind of giving us a baseline of where we're starting from. So we have the fire and EMS levy, a combined levy. We're looking at $1.13. The target for the roadmap was $1.20. So we are under the target by about 7 cents. The benefit charge is currently at 12 cents, or it's forecasted to be at 12 cents. The target's 20 to 40 cents. So again, we're under the target there. And these, you may recall, like the funding guiding principles, it's a multi-year implementation process to get to our kind of the sweet spot or the target that we're looking for. And that's all factored in. So this is really just another baseline reporting here. And this last one is the staffing factor. It tracks the staffing factor and forecasted changes. So we're currently closer to like 4.4%. By the beginning of 2026, when the Fall Academy is out and on the streets, we're expecting that to jump up to 4.8%. With the hiring that's expected in 2026, we're hoping to end the year at 5. That doesn't account for any attrition that we wouldn't be able to get folks through the academy to cover for. So it could be lower than that, but that is the forecast. And then the long-term discussion target was at 5.5%. And again, that's a long-term target. So we weren't expecting to hit that next year anyway. So the conclusion is that positive variances were found for all items reported. As such, the report concludes that the roadmap implementation can proceed without modification for the 2026 budget. And that's what I have for you on this topic. Happy to take any questions.
Yeah, questions from the board members for Mr. Bothwell on this? Commissioner Rowland.
On one of those slides, I don't know the number, you talked about the targets for the EMS levy and the, could you pull that back up real
Sure.
quick?
Is it
So
this one?
could you explain, I guess I'm just a little bit confused. The amount of money we're taking in has not changed, but because property values have increased more than what we thought they were, or just over time, our effective levy rate has gone down. But for like the average homeowner, they're not paying any less. It's just the value of the house goes up, the levy rate goes down proportionally, and everything equals out in the end. Is that correct?
Correct.
So when we talk about the target levy rate, what's the reasoning behind just setting those numbers? Is it arbitrary? Is it what's considered healthy? Is it what gives us the best headroom? I'm just.
So what we know is that as a local government, our costs are not they're not affected by the 1% limit in property tax. And so our costs are affected by general inflation. We really have no control over that in terms of labor costs and everything else. And so what the guiding principles say is that we want to keep our levies at 80% of what's allowable. And so that's what the targets are. They're 80% of the dollar that we're allowed to have in the fire levy, and then the EMS levy, the max allowed is 50 cents.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Bothwell on this portion of the report? No, okay. And Mr. Bothwell, does that take us on to 2026 expenditure forecast?
It does.
Okay, let's go for it.
Okay, so the expenditure forecast is the complement to the revenue forecast that I presented to you a few weeks ago. So this is sort of the other side of the budget equation. And what we're looking at are really rough numbers. So this is not the detailed budget. This is just a forecast of kind of where we think things are headed. So tonight I'm going to give you a little bit of background. I've got the forecasting method and assumptions, and you'll see it's really simple. I'll share with you the results, and then I'll share a rough draft of the budget preview when I put together the revenue forecast and the expenditure forecast, kind of where, how well do they match up. So just for background, the expenditure forecast is the predicted cost to provide current services at current levels of service without any extras. And it informs us about the ongoing cost to provide services, and it provides a baseline for budget development. There's one sort of interesting wrinkle this year, and that's the organizational roadmap. So we needed to kind of make a decision about whether or not we were going to include those additional costs in this or not. Because those are based on population growth and workforce changes, I did include them, but I noted it everywhere where they're included. So you can see what happens, what it looks like before and after. So our forecasting method is fairly simple. We start with the current adopted budget. We strip out one-time or non-recurring expenditures. So we started with a 2025 budget of about 123 million. By the time we stripped out the non-recurring items, we ended up at about 114 million. So pulled out quite a bit. We group expenditures based on the nature of those expenditures, and the two kind of buckets I'm going to talk about today are labor costs and then everything else, so the non-labor costs. We apply the best data available to predict value in the coming year, and then we add it all up, and the result is our status quo forecast. So the assumptions that we use in this forecast is a 2.6% cost of living adjustment for all employees. So this follows CPIW that I showed in the last presentation. We have benefits increasing the rate of total salaries and wages, except medical. And you're sort of accustomed probably to seeing medical at 8% for our self-insured plan. But we have an actuarial report that said that in 24, our rates were about 7% behind. And in an average year, the 8% is fine. So we're taking the 8%, or we're expecting to get a budget adopted that would have the 8% plus a catch-up 7%. So a larger than normal adjustment this year there, and that's reflected in this forecast. All non-employee costs will increase by headline inflation. So on the previous presentation I showed you, that was 2.7%. And then no non-employee changes are included. And the ones that I'm going to point out are just the annexation items. So these are the costs, the additional costs that we're going to have associated with serving Edmonds as the RFA rather than under contract. So the result is that the general fund is forecasted to increase by $5.9 million or 4.8%. That's before roadmap implementation, and then by a little over 12 million and a little under 10% after roadmap implementation. And that's compared to the 2025 budget. Employee costs make up, without roadmap, a little under $4 million of increase, and then with, it's a little over 10 million. Supplies and services come in at $2 million. That includes the Edmonds items. And that is unaffected by the roadmap. So this is the breakdown for the employee cost increase. There's a cost of living adjustment. There's the benefits increase. We have merit or step increases. There's an adjustment made for the overtime rate just because basically the effect of the COLA and merit increases. And then we have roadmap salaries and benefits, which is sort of the lion's share of it to get to our 10.1 million. For non-employee costs, we have just normal inflation for supplies and services. And those are all the current existing budgeted supplies and services. We have Snow 911 charges for fire for Edmonds, and then Left 1 charges associated with Edmonds as well. We also have a supplemental excess policy that the board approved earlier this year that was unbudgeted. And so we threw that in there too at 70,000 for a total of 2 million of non-employee costs. So this is sort of when we put those two pieces together, when we take the forecasted revenue that I presented a few weeks ago, and put it together with forecasted expenditures, you can see that we're pretty well balanced. There's a modest surplus of about $200,000. This does not include roadmap implementation. And you may recall that roadmap implementation has its own funding package. And so it's not folded in here, but we'll talk about that at a future budget meeting. And that's the end of that presentation.
Questions from the board for Mr. Bothwell? Questions? Any questions? No. Commissioner Chan, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we again, we start the status quo, no increase, anything else.
Turn your mic on, please.
Yeah, I think you understand, since the audience in here, we do look at our budget rate seriously, and also that we're not adding things until we really need it for, right? It's the same thing. And then also too, because the population growth, we have to look at any future station, new things, because we cannot wait until the population here and then we build it, then we'll be too late. So I just kind of, that's the balance of the board. It's very difficult to, just any city council, right? You have to be balanced the money and the service and everything else. Okay, we're going to doing same process. Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Any other questions on this report, Commissioner Rowland?
So salary and wages, that includes anticipated overtime? Or is that not?
It does,
Okay.
yeah.
And then do we know where the last 2 years, I believe that I looked at, we exceeded the budgeted for overtime. Do we know where we're at in regards to that this year?
I do. And the next item in your agenda is the Q2 report, and it is highlighted in there. So I have a slide on that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Well, that segues us then into our third report with Mr. Bothwell, and that's the second quarter financial report. Go ahead.
Perfect. Okay, this is just your routine quarterly report. We'll touch on all the same topics we always do. So we've got the June 30th year-to-date results for revenue and expenditure. I do have an overtime update in there, and then I've got a report on a couple of our other funds that I want to bring your attention to as well. So revenue performance is it's fine. Revenues are all on track. There is only one real highlight, and that's our investment program revenue. We've generated an additional $385,000 above what was budgeted in the first 6 months of the year. And that's primarily the result of a rate environment that's favoring almost liquid investments, and also the full implementation of our recently updated investment strategy. So the third item here is we have some cash flow watch list items. So we're expecting in both of these cases, this revenue is going to come in through the end of the year or by the end of the year. And so we're not looking for an adjustment, but I just wanted to highlight these for you. The first one is GEMT revenue. We have not received our payment yet. So we've received nothing on this program. It's one of our top 5 revenues. We usually receive that payment in May. Last year it was delayed until October, and we still haven't seen it this year. So I think that they're in the middle of an audit again. We don't know exactly where this revenue, when we're going to receive it, and we don't know how much it's going to be. So it's going to be something we'll continue to talk about during budget. But I wanted to give you a highlight, just a heads up that that's out there. The second one actually changed its status from the time that we published your agenda materials and now. So the second one was the Edmunds contract payments. Those were kind of on pause for a minute, and that actually resolved itself late last week. So that's not an issue anymore. There are no revenue trends to report to you. So we're looking fine. On the expenditure side of it, expenditures are on track, but trending slightly high. We're 49%, so we're 50% of the way through the year. We're 49% spent. I'm frequently telling you that there's a sweet spot of underspend of 2 to 5%. So we're just a little bit higher than we're sort of accustomed to being at this point in the year. I think, and part of that is that we only had 3 shift personnel leave in the first 6 months of the year. So we had really low attrition, and we always staff up in advance of those. And so we're carrying a few extra people, and I think that's why we're so close to the line on that. I bring this to your attention just because it's time to report this, but monitoring and good budget discipline, I think, are going to be critical to getting us through this year. I don't expect that we're going to need a budget amendment in the general fund. I just wanted to highlight the fact that we're a little closer than we're sort of accustomed to being. So no new trends identified, just slow attrition, and we'll continue to monitor this. And when we get to the third quarter, we'll obviously give you an update on this too. So for your overtime update, overtime was 56% spent for the 6 months of the year. So we're a little ahead of where we should be at 50%. Overtime is not distributed equally throughout the year. So, and it doesn't really follow a trend. We've looked at a couple of years, and it doesn't follow a trend based on seasonality or anything like that. So the usage and the rate are up compared to the same period last year, but they're still down a little bit compared to 2023. So it's just a little bit volatile. So this is a wait and see what happens. So everybody's aware of this. We'll monitor this and bring you an update for Q3 as well. If anything extraordinary happens between now and then, we'll give you an update, but just a wait and see. So the other funds, our capital funds, and the rest of our funds are all looking fine, and the financial plans are the actual results are consistent with the financial plans. These last two, though, I do want to highlight for you, and these are ones we talked about recently. We've had a lot of sort of issues or difficulty with these two funds recently, and the first one is the Left One Medical Reserve. The second is the Healthcare Self-Insurance Fund. So expenditures are trending high for both of these funds. A budget amendment is likely for the Left One Medical Reserve before we get to the end of the year. It's almost certain for the Healthcare Self-Insurance Fund. We've talked about this probably more than anybody is really happy about, but it just continues to have a tough time. One of the things that's sort of interesting about it is that we're on a calendar year, but this is the plan itself is on a fiscal year end 6/30. So it's really too soon to say exactly or to really forecast what's going to happen between now and the end of the year. So we'll bring you an update for Q3 and sooner if we need to, but there's almost certain to need it. It's almost certain to need a budget amendment before the end of the year. So again, this is similar to the other ones, just monitoring prescribed for now, not necessarily new issues that we haven't talked about, but things we're going to have to deal with between now and the end of the year. So, and that's the end of that one.
Thank you, Mr. Bothwell. Questions from Mr. Bothwell on the second quarter financial report, Commissioner Chan?
Yeah, even though we're not on the accrue basis. So it look like most of them are 47, 49%, which is half the budget. So I assume you don't have any holding up any big payment or anything. You're pretty up to date with whatever expenses, right?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah, there's a couple of things that we pay at the beginning of the year that do kind of skew the results.
Right,
You're
right.
familiar with them when we pay insurance and we pay, make contributions to Viva and stuff like that. Those things aren't factored in. They're relatively small. And by mid-year, I think their impact is sort of minor, but it's there. But there's nothing that we're not holding up any payments. All the payables would be through 6/30.
Yeah, I always concerned about that one. I don't know for those who those are the previous, what year that those people came on that have for the retired people. What adjustment you think you're going to approximate how much? Is that going to be so significant or anything?
In the context of the fund, it's significant. It's running about 15% high right now, which means we'd probably be looking at a $200,000-$300,000 adjustment to the budget. It does have a healthy fund balance,
Right.
which is so it would be probably just an expenditure budget adjustment. The healthcare self-insurance fund, though, we just adopted some new policies with that. We have to implement that one. We have to implement those policies, and that one is going to require some additional funding from the general fund. But our fund balance is healthy, so shouldn't
Okay.
cause alarm.
Yeah, okay. I just off the subject a little bit. I saw the audit report for 2024 came out. That's great and a really good timing. I did not see any big problem with the audit report.
Nope, it was
yeah.
a clean audit and we were done. We were done in, I think, the beginning of June. I think we had
Right.
the audited issue.
No, I'm so happy that we're so on time. Used to be, they delay 1 year. So
Yep.
I think if the public want to see it, they can look up the audit report. I think we can available for them to look at,
Mhm.
right?
Yep,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Any other questions on the second quarter financial report? Commissioner, Board Member Kritcher.
Hey, so the yearly revenue will go up 6.1% next year because of the annexation. Is that the number?
I apologize. I didn't bring the revenue forecast, but
Well, I just thought that there was like a 6.1% revenue forecast increase that I saw somewhere for next year.
I don't think it's in the current materials, but last time I presented, it was the revenue forecast.
Okay, well, the one question I had is I was just looking at the employee expenditures analysis, and it does include the roadmap additional stuff, and then that's a 16% increase. And I know that the math doesn't really work out. It's not 6.1 versus 16 because this is based on 70 million and the 6% is based on 120 million. So different numbers, but it doesn't seem like that is balancing out. So I just want to throw that out there. I'm kind of just trusting my instincts on this one
Yeah.
and seeing what your response might be.
So
It doesn't seem even.
yeah, so not in the Q2 report that we're talking about, but you're talking about the previous one, the expenditure forecast?
I'm on the expenditure forecast 2026.
Yeah, so on the expenditure forecast, the final slide that I had, it does not, that's before any sort of roadmap implementation. And the reason is that it becomes a little cloudy if I include roadmap implementation because I didn't include it in the revenue forecast because it's sort of a standalone thing at this point. It has, we're talking about the resource. So with the roadmap, it's the resources that are required to implement that, and it has its own funding plan versus the status quo revenue forecast, which is what I presented, which is like if we do exactly what we're doing today, everything that's already done, that's the number we would be looking at. And so on my final slide for that presentation was the revenue forecast without any roadmap implementation in it, compared to the expenditure forecast without any roadmap implementation in it. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm tracking, but I think that's.
I think that is what I'm saying.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. And we will have like further conversations about the roadmap implementation and the funding plan that came with that, because it does move the need. It changes things a little bit. So we're showing what so tonight I showed the cost associated with the expenditure side of it. And then how we package that up will actually be like in terms of funding it, will be dictated by our funding guiding principles. And so it's a little bit more non-routine. It's a weird one. And so we'll bring that back to you all and go into some detail on that as well.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Bothwell on second quarter report? No, very good. Thank you, Mr. Bothwell.
Thank you all.
And so we're a little overdue for our break, but we have a lot of things to get to yet in the evening. We're going to take our 10-minute break. We're going to keep it to 10 minutes and come back at 5 minutes to 9 and continue on with our new business at that point. So without objection, we'll be in a 10-minute recess. Okay, we are back on the record after our brief recess and ready to start up back with the agenda in item number 12, which is new business, starting 12A, which is a board discussion regarding City of Mill Creek and the new deployment plan. I will seek comments or perhaps questions for Chief from the board members to start with. Any comments, questions from board members for the Chief? Commissioner Fernhoff.
First off, I want to thank Penny Coyne for the most delicious pasta salad I think I've ever had. That was amazing. We've heard a lot of points of view this evening. I think they're all important. I think what your work has revealed to you is that you were caught between resource shortfalls and making decisions maybe that benefit the entire RFA, but don't necessarily focus singularly on one community. And I would be one eager to explore from our point of view, which we are the holders of the resources, right? The budget, to what we can provide you as fire chiefs in your decision-making, to maybe reevaluate and see if we can bridge that gap, and try to make the community whole rather than look at the RFA as a giant this organism, for the lack of a better term. So I'm going to invite that kind of discussion, as well as when you're thinking, because right now you're thinking in this teeter-totter type of system, how are you going to do it? And if it's 1 or 2 or 3 chess pieces that you need on the table, articulate that to the board. There's kind of a misconception that the board members are all knowing, all seeing, and that's not necessarily the case. And I'm sure council members go through the same thing. You're all knowing and all seeing, right? You know everything. So that's what I'm going to kind of throw out there in a friendly manner and just see where we can get with that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Chan.
Well, I think first of all, I just, in the conversation, just in general, government don't change things. So that's what they're afraid of, right? You change something, oh God, can be bad because, and I think I give you guys, there's a lot of work for you to new deployment and everything else, to keep the population growing and everything else. So I really appreciate the work. But I think as a board member, I took full responsibility by not thinking about other audience in there. Okay, we already look at response time and all that. There's so many numbers. I don't know how many times we go through the whole dashboard report, make sure the whole system is work or not work. Completely forget a lot of people don't speak our languages out there. So we need to change our language. I can concur with Fernhoff. I think we need to have a rediscussion on this, see what we can do. I think together, I think we can solve the problem.
Thank you.
Other commissioner comments, questions, discussion? Yes, Board Liaison Swisher.
I appreciated the presentation that you gave tonight. That I think a presentation of that to the Mill Creek Council before we implemented, might have gone a long way. Because it really showed where you guys were coming from. The one correction I was going to make is the data. There were two different things there. They actually took the previous year's data, and then they also did just the 6 months of this year. So it was something, I mean, we've been talking about this roadmap all year long, last year too, for a little while, right? Yeah. It's been a very long discussion. I do think that what I got from all of our discussions about it is that it's very fluid, that you guys are monitoring, and that the decisions were made based off the fact that the people in the northeast corner of Mill Creek need the services that are coming from, is that Station 12?
And 13.
And 13. But so the people up there need those services more. 76 is being supported by
21.
21, and what's the other one? There's two of them
There's
there.
21, there's 11.
Okay, that's 11. Sorry. I still don't have all of that down. I won't by the time I go off of here. But what I got from it is that the move was because the people in those corners of the different cities, for all of us, need those services that you gave us on the roadmap more than just right here downtown in the middle of their hub, right? If I followed all of it correctly over the last year. And that you guys are going to continue watching that. That's where your 120 days came from, to see if any of that changes, so that you make sure that from each different department, you are providing, each station, you're providing the services closest to them that area calls on most frequently, right?
Correct.
Okay. And like with Briar, you increased us because of the fact that our people aren't just serving us. It's all the unincorporated right outside of where our station is located, right? Okay. I'm following and making sure. So it really is fluid, and it could change multiple times, like every 4 months based on your 120 days, right?
Absolutely. I mean,
Okay.
like I said, we're going to monitor this. I mean, we say 120 days for the sample size, but we get a data dump every 30 days. And
okay.
If we're off, we are going to change.
Okay. Yeah. I wanted to clarify that because I feel like, because the communication wasn't, for everybody else. And I mean, even for all of us, it took us a while to follow you guys on where you were going with it. I just wanted to make sure that my layman terms, because I don't use all the stuff you guys use. I'm still trying to remember ALS and BLS all the time. I have to have people around here remind me. But yeah, I think that a conscientious review of it and continue providing service for, closest to the people who are calling for it makes sense. I know it doesn't feel that way for Mill Creek at this time. But I think giving them more information and keeping them in the loop of how their services are being called on and where they're being called on in their city and how they're being serviced will help them to feel better about it, because it was a tough plan to follow, but you got us all there, and I really liked, and maybe for some of the other cities, you may need to do that data to let them know as you move forward, if things change, why their change is coming too.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is very real. I mean, I'll be honest, it's challenging for us. I mean, when I say hundreds of hours, it might have been 1,000 hours going through it and holding all the disparate data sets in your head at the same time is super challenging, and we're immersed in it. And so um, that's why I couldn't show everything tonight. And that's why, as you say, it's challenging to conceive it all at once. But we can do better on communication and we'll endeavor to do so.
Other questions, comments on the issue? Commissioner Wittes.
Thank you. I just got to say one thing first, that since I retired, or should I say prior to me being retired here, I think our save rate was about 48%, and you guys have got it up to 74.1 now. And you've done that because of redeployment, because of moving things, because of looking at stuff. It wasn't an accident. You've done well to get it there. And I look at that and I get concerned that I know Mill Creek, I live in Mill Creek, and you look at that station thinking that that serves the city and that handles all the calls in the city of Mill Creek. And it doesn't. I know the police department, they handle all their calls. There's 3 officers on duty. They're there. I see them, and they handle the calls. They don't need much help coming in. When you were down there at that meeting, we had 4 calls. Medic 76 wasn't on any of them. And that's some of the stuff I look at. How do we get that covered? If Medic 76 is gone, which it is a lot, could be in Surfer because of where it's located, then who covers the north end? The north end of Mill Creek and the northeast end of Mill Creek, it's not even its first due area for 76. It's Station 12 and it's Station 13 because that's geographically where it is. Mill Creek has changed quite a bit since it was incorporated, and that was back in September 30th of 1983. I do recall that. That's my birthday. That's why I remember. I was going on a call in Huckleberry at the time for chest pain. So we got some near deep roots to that. And we tried to take care of that area. We tried to handle that area, but it's grown so much all the way to Seattle Hill Road. It's expansive. And the station is not located technically where it should be for the city per se. It's located downtown, if you want to call that downtown. But that's where it is, and it doesn't get east, it doesn't get north very easy. So that's what I get concerned about. As far as not communicating that, that's on us. There's no question about that. Should have been communicated. Take the heat for that one. But it's one of those things that all we're trying to do is save lives and property. That's truly what we do here. And like I say, since I've been gone, you've done a great job of getting there. This organization has. I just wanted to throw those things out. Thank you.
Other questions, comments? I wanted to chime in and say that I appreciate Chief Maxwell and Chief Eastman and senior staff looking at being data-driven on these issues. I hear all the time about we need to be more efficient. We need to provide better service. We need to do essentially more with less. And part of that is being data-driven and looking at our response modeling because things change. Population areas change, time of day changes, road congestion changes. And so we have to keep on top of that constantly. And there's nothing static. And so being data-driven, I think, is important to reflect the changes as changes happen over time. So I applaud the chief for looking at that and looking for ways to improve that. And I have not heard in the comments tonight really any data challenges to that or anything about following data. And so I think it's really important to follow the data because that takes us to where the response and the response needs are. And those aren't based on history, and those aren't based on years and years of doing it a certain way. And that's where I feel like the fire service gets a little trapped into the past and tied to the past. Well, we've always done it this way. And I applaud the chief and the senior staff for looking at, well, it may have been done that way forever or for a long time, but what does it need? How does it need to be done now to better serve the community? Because that's the bottom line is, how can we better serve the community, provide the EMS and fire service, fire protection in the best way possible for everybody in South County Fire, including everybody in Mill Creek. And so that's the challenge. But we've talked about the size of the organization, the number of responses per day, it comes down to the data. And where does the data take us? And I don't hear a lot of comments tonight about the data. I hear a lot of comments about emotion and the way it's always been. And those are things to consider. Don't get me wrong. But I think at the end of the day, you got to come back to the data because that's where the service is. That's where we provide the service. And so I appreciate the chief looking into that. I think we need to continue to consider the data, but I think there are new pieces of information that we've learned tonight, and we should come back and talk about the issue some more at subsequent meetings. We have a work session next week, which is a good opportunity to talk about issues, and this would be a good one to have on there to continue the conversation. I think there are some pieces that have teased out of the conversation tonight that would be valuable to talk about some more. So I don't think the discussion is concluded, and I know other commissioners have mentioned things about other maybe pieces of data or other issues to consider regarding this. So it's been an interesting conversation, and I think more to come, shall we say. Any other questions or comments on the issue? Commissioner Fernhoff.
Yeah, I just want to echo what's been said here and that we hear you. We obviously had a communications problem. We've acknowledged that. Also heard that there's, some potential legal review that we should need to be doing. We also have to respect President Moore's contribution this evening in discussion of labor. That's more of on our side, a term called cross-staffing. It's something that we have been hoping to eliminate in the department that strengthens our capability, strengthens the safety on scenes. It does many things in addition to bringing us into compliance with a standard from the NFPA. So I just wanted to throw those back out there so you understand that that's what I heard.
Any other questions, comments on the Mill Creek issue discussion here at the board? Okay, thank you. We'll plan to have that, or I'll plan to put it on the agenda for the work session next Tuesday. That takes us forward to item number 12B, which is our regional training program presentation. But I believe due to we have some other issues we need to get to. We were going to go ahead and push that to a future meeting. It's not time sensitive.
Yes, please.
Okay, that sounds good. So we're going to skip over that. That'll be at a future upcoming soon meeting. That gets us to item number 13, which is committee updates, starting with Capital Facilities Plan Committee. And I believe Chief Isatalo is stepping in for Commissioner Lawrence on the update.
Yes, he is. Thank you.
Okay, from the dark.
Voice from
He
above.
shows up. Yeah, thank you, Chair Kenny. So we had a meeting last week. We discussed the updated capital facility plan construction schedule that has moved along well. It now includes the tear down and replacement of Station 76 in Mill Creek. So that was a new station to the plan from when it was originally done. So we've added that. It is a fairly complex schedule with multiple projects occurring at the same time. Additionally, we discussed the estimator's initial number for the total cost of the capital facilities plan. It comes in right under $350 million. Again, this is a very initial number. We still have some things to talk about at the committee level, like adding apparatus and adding some land purchases. Next steps, discussion was about moving forward in August with bringing a resolution to the board so that the cost for the Station 22 construction can be included if we go to bond for the capital facilities plan. It's kind of a procedural thing, and we'll explain that more at a future meeting here in August. September, we discussed bringing in Jim Nelson to discuss bonds with the board, so kind of an education for the board and staff on bonds. And then following in October, bringing Mr. Harrison from TCA to discuss our updated capital facilities plan. And we should have some final estimates at that point. And then, of course, in November, then continue with the discussion at the board level about the capital facilities plan and bonds. And that's all I have for the report. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Chief Isatalo? All right, up next is Finance and Human Resources, Commissioner Chan.
Yeah, we're gonna see what CFO and Dave had any issue, any important issue need to bring up. So we'll be still on the third week, Thursday.
Great.
And then, of course, committee members, and give me any suggestion you want to do. Okay.
Thank you. Next up is intergovernmental with Commissioner Wittes.
Thank you. We talked about a few things. One was, we brought up, a month ago about meeting with District 4. We have not done that yet. We put it out there, but we haven't got anything scheduled from that. Chief talked to us about the lobbyist. He hired the same lobbyist we had this year. So we can keep on top of the things down in Olympia, specifically the stuff that the state commissioners don't pay attention to. And I don't mean that in a mean way. They just don't. And then we brought up what we're going to do along with lobbyists as far as that we need to be in play in Olympia, DC, things like that. If we're going to be what we do in this organization, we should do that. And the next thing I was going to bring up about future stuff is we probably should meet regularly with our cities that are out there and start talking with them. I do believe, I just talked to the council member, I do believe he said they take the month of August off. I don't know if it's a whole month, if we can find out about that. If not, I would like to go to one of their next meetings, but it may not be till September. And that's all I have.
Great, thank you. Lastly, we have Snow 911 with Commissioner Furnoff.
Yeah, we did meet virtually, actually. So sorry, Commissioner Chan, if you showed up expecting donuts. We did a virtual Zoom meeting. Most of it was business as usual. There was some discussion about the new drone program, but they actually didn't go into any demonstration, or they kind of breezed over it, which was a surprise because I thought it would be a more of an in-depth review. They talked about continuation of the improvement of the radio system and facilities there at Snow 911. That concludes my report.
Excellent, thank you. That takes us forward to item number 14 and commissioner comments. Are there any commissioner comments this evening? Any commissioner
have one.
comments? Commissioner Wittes.
Thank you. I was down in Olympia on Friday and Saturday for the strategic planning for the Commissioners Association. So it looks like we kind of got a handle on that. A little fighting and scratching, but I think we got something that will be done prior to the end of the year.
That's great, thank you. Other commissioner comments? Any other commissioner comments? Oh, Commissioner Chan, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I heard a lot of comments about bait and switch and be honest and all that. I think as a commissioner, we are elected official, we have no private desire or reward or do other way. We're here to serve the people. So I appreciate that. We don't have, give illusion to other people. I'm trying to take advantage of another organization, another cities or any type of thing. So that's what I'm trying to say.
Other commissioner comments? Commissioner Rowland, go ahead.
I've seen twice tonight, and I'm trying to be diplomatic in the way I say this, where commissioners are taking issue with the wording or the messages, the way people are comporting themselves, or what they're saying or how they're saying it. It's our job to listen as commissioners, and not just to the words that are being said, but the intent behind them, to understand where they're coming from, and to give a little grace to people who are often dealing with stressful situations. For our mayor and our city council members in Mill Creek, we didn't include them. This has developed very rapidly. They are still reeling. They have an obligation to their voters. Maybe they didn't use the words that we would like to hear, or even from our union report. But I think it would do the board some good to take a step back when people are trying to tell us something and try to understand what they're really trying to tell us, and not police the way they're saying or criticize their messaging. It doesn't do us any good as leaders of this organization to have thin skins or to berate people for using certain language. We're here to listen. We're here to assimilate that information and make good decisions based off of it. And some of the most valuable feedback you will ever receive is going to be critical. It's going to be hard to hear. That's your opportunity for growth. That's your opportunity to understand. And that's where you can build relationships. But if you're too focused on being offended or feeling attacked, you're not going to see the whole. So I think we owe it to the people that come in to show some humility and grace when they come before us, and to show the qualities that were pointed out again before this body. I think they sometimes get lost on us. So that's my comments.
Any other commissioner comments?
Yes, what I'm seeing is that reading especially the Edmonds annexation, there's a lot of people in there and saying that thing. I'm just saying that I'm not being offended or anything. I just want to clearly to all the public people that we have no private private goal and any other things in there. It just, we don't have, private gain by doing anything for the organization. Thank you.
Any other commissioner comments? If not, we have executive session. We have 3 items for executive session, not necessarily in this order, but to receive and evaluate complaints or charges brought against a public officer or employee pursuant to RCW 4230-110-1F, review the performance of a public employee pursuant to RCW 4230-110-1G, and potential litigation pursuant to RCW 4230-110-1I, and finally, potential litigation pursuant to RCW 4230-110-1I. So we're going to do this for approximately 40 minutes from now until our witching hour at 10 o'clock. And I am hopeful, I'm crossing my fingers, we're going to be able to handle all 3 issues in that period of time. So we'll be in a brief recess back to executive session. I guess with our brief recess, we'll actually be starting at 9:25 until 10. And I'm trying to think, hold on. We are not anticipating taking action at the conclusion of executive session, right, Chief? Correct. Okay. And with that, we will be in recess back to executive session. Thank you.
South County Fire Board of Commissioners regular meeting was called back to order at 10:20 p.m. and without objection, the meeting is adjourned.